The wind blew across the burned land. The ground was cracked, black, and smoking. Metal pieces and broken weapons lay everywhere. The sky was dark with smoke, and fire still burned in the distance. It was the aftermath of a battle between the humans and the Khazari Empire. Lyra walked slowly through the ruined battlefield. She was a tall alien warrior with silver-blue skin, sharp eyes, and armor that shimmered under the dusty light. Behind her, 4 other Khazari soldiers followed, scanning the area for survivors or useful tech. "Careful," said one of them. "Humans are known to play dead." "They don't play," Lyra answered. "They just refuse to die." She stopped near a fallen dropship. The Khazari symbol was scorched into the metal. Around it lay bodies, both Khazari and human. Most of them were already cold. "Commander Voss wants scans and samples," another soldier reminded her. "Let's find something before the scavengers arrive." Lyra nodded and turned toward a strange sound, a faint, steady breathing. It was coming from behind a pile of rubble. She raised her plasma blade and moved closer. Carefully, she pushed aside a broken piece of metal. Underneath, lying half-covered in dust and ash, was a human soldier. He was injured, his side bleeding, his helmet cracked, one arm limp, but his eyes were open. He stared at her without fear. His face was calm, but there was strength behind it. Even in pain, he looked ready to fight. "He's alive," Lyra said quietly. The others came closer. "Kill him," said one. "Before he alerts others." "No," Lyra replied. "He could have information. Let's take him in." The soldier moved slightly, trying to sit up. Blood poured from his side. Lyra stepped forward, blocking the others. "Don't move," she said in broken earth language. "We're not here to kill." The human didn't speak. He just stared at her. His eyes gray and cold watched her every move. Lyra crouched down beside him. Something in his expression was strange. Not fear, not anger, just patience. Like he had seen worse. She reached out to check his wound. But as soon as her finger touched the blood, everything changed. Suddenly, Lyra felt like she had been pulled into fire. Her vision blurred. The battlefield disappeared. Her mind filled with screaming. Explosions, blinding lights, worlds burning. Men and women in heavy armor rushing into battle. Planets torn apart by war. She saw Earth long ago. Humans fighting humans. Then humans fighting aliens. Then humans fighting monsters from deep space. She saw 100 types of war. Guns, knives, fire, chemicals, machines, claws, teeth. Her body shook. Her breath stopped. She saw soldiers freezing in the snow, screaming in deserts, floating in space. She saw death. She saw survival. She saw humans losing, then rising again, then winning. Again and again, the images wouldn't stop. One after another. War after war. Century after century. 1,000 screams in her ears. Her heart beat faster. Her hands trembled. She pulled back sharply, gasping. The battlefield returned. The sky was still dark. The others were still standing near her. The human was still lying on the ground watching her. Lyra fell back, eyes wide. "What was that?" She whispered. "You touched his blood," said one soldier, confused. "What happened?" Lyra couldn't speak. Her voice was lost. Her brain still echoed with pain, fire, and war. I saw things," she finally said. "So many things. Battles, death, survival. Over and over again. It was all inside his blood." "That's impossible," another soldier said. "No, it's real," Lyra whispered. "Their blood. It remembers." The human spoke for the first time. "That was only a glimpse," he said, his voice rough but steady. "Only 300, Lyra. looked at him, confused. 300. What? Wars, he replied. Only the ones I remember. Silence fell. Even the wind seemed to pause. Lyra slowly stood up. Her legs were weak, her hands still shaking. The others looked at her like she had lost her mind. But inside, Lyra knew something was very, very wrong. They had believed humans were dangerous. But they had no idea how dangerous. She had seen it. Not from stories or reports. She had felt it. From just one drop of blood dot, and that was only from one human. How many more carried this memory of endless war? As the others argued about what to do next, Lyra stepped back from the group and stared at Dane, the wounded human. He didn't move. Didn't blink. Dot. He had shown her more truth in 1 second than her empire had told her in a lifetime. She now understood something simple and terrifying. Earth doesn't raise soldiers. Earth raises survivors who never stop fighting. And they had just touched the edge of something far more dangerous than they were ready for. Pastoress Clara could not sleep that night. The camp was quiet. The fires were low. The other soldiers had gone to rest, leaving guards to watch the human. But Lyra sat alone, staring at her hands. She still felt the heat of the human's blood on her skin, even though she had washed it off hours ago. God, it was not normal. Dot. She had touched blood before. She had seen death, pain, and fear. But this was something else. What she saw in that moment 300 wars was not just memory. It was like the human's blood had burned the truth into her mind. And that truth was terrifying. The human, Dane, was now locked inside a containment shield. His body weak, but his eyes never stopped watching. Lyra stood and walked slowly toward the cell. 2 guards stopped her. You want to question him? One asked. No, just speak, she replied softly. They nodded and let her pass. She stood in front of Dane's cell, and he looked up. You're not like the others, he said. I touched your blood, she replied. And I saw things I shouldn't have. Yeah, he said. Most don't survive that. She blinked. Is that normal for humans? Dane smirked. Not all of us. Just the ones born for war. Lyra stepped closer. What were those visions? Real wars? He nodded. Real. All of them. Fought by humans across centuries on Earth, in space, on other worlds. But how? How does blood carry memory? She asked. Dane leaned forward, eyes cold. We don't forget. That's the thing. Pain stays. Victory stays. It passes from one to the next through our stories, our scars, our blood. It becomes who we are. Lyra felt a chill. But I saw children fighting, cities burning, even monsters. Not all enemies were alien, he said. Some were our own. She swallowed hard. Why do you keep fighting? Dane didn't answer at first. Then he said, because we have to. Because if we don't, something worse will. Take everything. And because we know one truth peace never lasts. Lyra felt her knees weaken again. She thought of her empire powerful, proud, and full of rules. They trained for war, yes, but humans. Humans were born inside it. Suddenly, an alarm sounded. Red lights blinked across the camp. Escape attempt, one guard shouted. North. Perimeter. The guards rushed away. Lyra stayed still for a moment, then turned and ran after them. In the chaos. Nobody saw what was happening near Dane's cell. He didn't move, but a single drop of blood from his arm had fallen and slid under the force field. It reached the foot of a curious young Khazari soldier who had been cleaning near the door. The blood touched his skin, and the boy screamed. Lyra reached the edge of the camp, but there was no real escape, just a small wild animal that had tripped. The sensors. False alarm. When she returned, she saw a crowd near Dane's cell. One soldier was lying on the ground, shaking. What happened? She asked. His blood touched Kiro, a medic said, panicking. Now he's stuck. He keeps mumbling war codes, speaking in languages we don't understand. Lyra rushed forward. Kiro's eyes were rolled back. His hands clawed at the air. He spoke words in a human tongue words. Lyra had never heard Dane from inside the cell. Looked sad. Another one saw too much, he said quietly. The medic shook his head. He's not responding to anything. It's like he's trapped in some war dream. Lyra whispered. It's not a dream. It's a memory. Everyone turned to her. She stood slowly. We need to contact the command ship. This is more than just a prisoner. This human is carrying something dangerous, something alive in his blood. But it's just memory, someone argued. No, she said. It's living memory. It fights back. That night, Lyra sent a private message to Commander Vos. She explained the visions, the blood, the second exposure. His reply was short. Do not trust the human. Do not touch the blood again. Orders will follow. But Lyra had already decided. This was no longer about orders. It was about understanding what humans really were. And why. In the middle of death and destruction, this one human looked so calm. What kind of species could carry the weight of 300? Wars and still stand tall? She looked up at the stars and whispered, if this is what one soldier carries, what happens when we face the entire planet? Lyra stood alone in the cold corner of the command tent. The lights buzzed above her, flickering faintly. She kept her eyes on the floor, but her mind was racing. Images from the blood visions kept flashing. Battles on burning skies, human soldiers rising from rubble, the sound of war drums echoing across Tandot. She had seen too much, but something inside her whispered that it was only the beginning. Across the tent, Commander Vos entered with heavy boots. His armor clanked as he stepped in, tall and proud, with sharp eyes and no patience. You reported mental corruption, he said, voice flat. You touched his blood? Lyra nodded. Vos's jaw tightened. I told you to observe, not to engage. I didn't plan to, she replied. But one drop, just one drop, and it all came flooding in. Vos leaned in. You are trained. A warrior. Our minds are shielded. What could a wounded human possibly show you that shook you so badly? She looked up, her voice steady now. Pain, endless pain. History soaked in fire. I saw 300 wars. I felt each one. From primitive spears to space fleets crashing into moons. And none of them broke him. Vos scoffed. Propaganda? Human tricks. No, she said. Truth. The commander turned away, annoyed. I expected better from you. I expected humans to be simple, she said. But now I fear there's something else. Vos gave a cold glance. Fear is not for soldiers. Lyra's eyes sharpened. It is when you're standing on the edge of something too big to understand. Later, Lyra walked outside. The sky was dim, and the wind howled over the broken land. Around the camp, guards stood watch. No one spoke of the human, but everyone felt something had changed. She sat on a rock and opened her wrist scanner. Quietly, she began searching human data, the kind the Empire had blocked. Old reports, encrypted footage, classified files from past encounters. What she found chilled her bones. Humanity had fought alone for centuries before meeting any alien life. They had survived their own planet's worst climate disasters, plagues, civil wars, nuclear terror, and even self-made AI uprisings. Empires rose. Empires fell. But humans always returned, stronger than before. They didn't fear extinction. They challenged it. Suddenly, footsteps approached. A young soldier Tarek walked up, looking pale. You saw it too, didn't you? he asked softly. Lyra nodded. You touched the blood? He nodded once. It was an accident. But the vision, I saw oceans turn red, cities vanish, children holding weapons. I heard music playing during a nuclear storm. Lyra whispered, the memories are not just history. They are feelings. Tarek looked away. Why do they carry it like that? Because they don't let go, Lyra answered. They carry every war as armor. He stared at her. If one human holds 300 wars in his blood, what about a commander? Or a general? Lyra didn't answer. She didn't want to imagine what would happen if they touched the blood of a human who had led millions into battle dock in the medbay. Dane sat against the wall, arms crossed. Though he was locked in, his mind was free. He could hear the whispers now. Khazari soldiers were beginning to fear him. Good. Not because he wanted them to suffer, but because maybe now they'd understand. He had lost friends on this very battlefield. Young humans. Brave ones. They weren't monsters. They were survivors. And when you survive long enough, you learn how to make others afraid of trying to kill you. He smiled weakly. They thought humans were animals with sharp teeth. But what Lyra saw, what she touched, was the truth. Humans were the storm that kept coming back. Back in the command tent, Commander Voss sent a secret message to the Central Fleet. Human prisoner may carry weaponized memory transmission through blood contact. Recommend full isolation protocol. Potential risk. Psychological infection. As he pressed send, he paused. He, too, had started to feel something. A chill he couldn't explain. Maybe it was doubt. Maybe fear. Or maybe it was the humans. Silence. That unbreakable quiet. As if Dane had already won without firing a shot. Lyra stood outside the medbay that night, watching him from the window. Dane slowly raised his hand and pointed at her heart. Not with anger. Not with threat. Just a slow gesture, as if to say, we're not here to scare you. We're here to remind you what war really means. And somehow, that scared her even more. That night, the wind changed. Air felt heavier, like the ground itself was holding its breath. The Khazari soldiers tried to sleep, but something kept them restless. Shadows stretched longer. Every whisper carried weight. Inside the medical dome, Dane lay on the cot, eyes open, watching the ceiling. He wasn't healing fast enough. His body ached, but pain wasn't new to him. What worried him more was the fear in their eyes, the fear that was growing. Fear was a warning, and it meant one thing. They were planning something. Lyra couldn't sleep either. She kept replaying the visions in her head. She saw giant metal beasts marching through ruined cities. She saw humans fighting creatures 10 times their size. And each time, they bled, but never stopped. Why? Why didn't they stop? She turned to her wrist pad and opened a secure channel. Not to the Empire, but to a hidden network, the old Khazari scientists, now exiled for asking dangerous questions. One name flashed back. Travik. He was once her teacher, and the only one who had warned her, don't study humans like animals. Study them like storms. The call connected. His tired face appeared on screen. Lyra, he said softly, surprised. I thought you were on the front lines. I am, she said. And I've seen something impossible. She told him everything. The blood, the visions, the young soldier who collapsed after exposure, and most of all the feeling that the memories were alive. Dravik didn't laugh. He didn't doubt. Instead, he leaned closer. You've touched a human war-bearer, he said. A rare type. Their blood holds echoes of extinction. Everything they've fought, everything they've survived. Lyra was quiet. Is it natural? No, Dravik said. It's chosen. bred by war, built by need. They made this, they became. This, he replied, long ago, when the universe ignored them and left them to die in the dark. The next morning, a secret order came from Commander Vos. Dane was to be transferred off-world. Lyra saw the truth. Transfer wasn't the goal. Execution was. She stormed into Vos's chamber. You want to erase what we don't understand? She demanded. Vos stood calmly, polishing his command badge. He's dangerous. You said it yourself. He's not a weapon. He's a warning. Vos looked at her coldly. That's exactly why he must be silenced. But what if others come? She said. What if they all carried the same thing? Vos didn't answer, but his silence said everything. They hadn't prepared for that possibility, because no one believed a species could carry war like blood. The transport ship, Landeda, cage, sealed and cold, was brought into the medbay. Dane was still weak, but awake. 2 soldiers entered to move him. Lyra stepped between them. No, she said, not like this. Dane looked at her. His voice was low. Don't fight them for me. I'm not, she said. I'm fighting them for the truth. One soldier moved toward her, blade raised. But then, Dane coughed. A single drop of blood fell. It hit the soldier's hand, and that was enough. The soldier collapsed screaming. He clutched his face, crying out words in human languages he had never learned. He saw images none of them could imagine. Fires, floods, explosions, the death of stars, the fall of civilizations. And through it all, humans marching forward. Commander Vos rushed in. Control them. He barked, but Lyra didn't move. She turned slowly, staring Vos in the eyes. You still think this is just a prisoner? Vos's hand moved toward his plasma pistol. I think you've gone soft. Dane sat up slowly. She's not soft. She's awake. The alarms rang. Across the camp. Scanners picked up a signal, an old human beacon. Weak but clear. Lyra looked down at Dane. You called someone? He shook his head. No, I called everyone. Up above the planet, far beyond their reach. A signal repeated quietly. Human warbearer compromised. Memories exposed. Earth will remember. Back in the medbay, Vos gave one final order. Kill him. But this time, no one moved. Not one soldier raised a weapon. Because in that moment, they all understood. This wasn't about war. This was about survival. And the humans had already survived more than they ever could. Asterisk. The order to kill Dane still hung in the air, but no one moved. Lyra stood in front of his cage, hands clenched, breathing heavy. The guards beside her hesitated. Their weapons shook slightly, not from weakness, but from something deeper. Fear, not of the human in front of them, but of what might come after. Commander Vos growled, stepping forward. Cowards! I gave you an order. Lyra turned to face him. No, she said firmly. You gave an excuse. Vos' eyes narrowed. You disobey a direct command during wartime? Lyra's voice didn't shake. This isn't war anymore. Not after what I've seen. Vos raised his weapon. Step aside or fall with him. Before anyone could speak, Dane stood, bleeding, weak, pale, but standing, eyes locked on Vos. If you kill me, Dane said quietly, you'll only prove what my blood showed her. Vos sneered. You think your blood makes you special? No. Dane replied. It makes me human. A sudden wind burst through the open medbay flaps, knocking over containers. The lights above flickered. The ground gave a strange tremor beneath their feet. Everyone froze. What was that? One soldier whispered. Then. The sky changed. Through the open panels, the dark clouds above began to glow. Not fire. Not sunlight. Engines. Silent. Giant. Spinning. Massive human warship broke through the clouds like a ghost, no sound. No warning. Just presence. Cold, ancient, and watching. Lyra whispered, "They came." Dane didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He just closed his eyes. They remembered. Vos stumbled back. No, they couldn't have arrived this fast. But Lyra knew better. They were already nearby, she said. Because they always. Prepare for the worst. A voice echoed from the sky, calm, controlled, and not meant to be loud. Human warbearer identified. Enemy forces acknowledged. Memory leak confirmed. Stand down or be erased. The words were short, but the message was huge. Even the ground seemed to pause. Vos turned pale. We're not ready to face a full Earth fleet. Lyra stepped forward. You don't understand. You already did. That's the man you tried to kill. She pointed to Dane. One warbearer. One wounded human. And your army already broke. Vos screamed, raised his pistol, and aimed it at Lyra. But her blade moved first. She spun, disarmed him with a flash of silver, and pressed the edge of her plasma knife to his throat. For the Empire, he hissed. No, she said. For the truth. She lowered her weapon and turned her back on him. I surrender, she said. Vos blinked. What? I surrender to this man, to his people, to what he carries. Because whatever they are, they're stronger than us. Not just in weapons, in will. She turned to Dane. He looked tired, still bleeding, but calm. You win, she said. Not because you killed us, but because you survived everything that tried to. He slowly sat back down. That's what we do, he whispered. We survive and we remember. The other soldiers, Khazari warriors, trained, since birth lowered their weapons, got one by one. Some even kneeled, not to Dane, but to the weight of his memory. To the fire that had burned in his blood. To the truth. They could no longer ignore. High above. The human warship didn't fire. It just hovered, watching, as if judging whether the Khazari would learn. Lyra stepped forward and opened a channel to the ship. This is Commander Lyra of the 9th Khazari. Strike Division. We acknowledge the warbearer. We surrender this camp, and we request to speak, not to fight. Silence. Then a calm voice replied, Acknowledged. He will speak for us. Everyone turned to Dane. His eyes opened, for the first time. They saw not just a soldier, not just a prisoner. They saw a voice of Earth, and Earth had finally spoken. Asterisk. The human warship hovered silently above the battlefield. No weapons fired. No troops dropped, but its shadow alone stretched across the land wide enough to cover cities. The Khazari camp had gone silent. Soldiers who once stood tall now lowered their heads, uncertain of what tomorrow would bring. And in the center of it all, Dane sat, barely breathing, his eyes watching the sky. Lyra stood nearby, her blade resting in the dirt. She had surrendered, not to fear, but to understanding. To something greater than any strategy or rank. Something ancient, hidden. Inside the human standing before her. A message came through the human ship once more. Earth acknowledges the surrender. The warbearer will speak. Prepare to receive the memory. Everyone froze. Lyra looked at Dane. What does that mean? Dane's voice was low. You touched my blood, Lyra. But now Earth will let you see more. The medbay lights dimmed. A beam of faint light shone from above, surrounding Dane. Lyra felt the air around her thicken like the very air was watching. Then, it happened. Her mind filled again, but not like before. This wasn't a rush of fire and fear. This was a guided memory, deliberate, focused, sharp like a knife. She saw a little boy standing beside a destroyed house, holding a broken toy. Saw a girl learning to run again after a battle had taken her legs. She saw mothers burying sons, And then, leading armies of survivors, she saw Earth not as a battlefield, but as a planet that refused to give up, even when the stars turned away, even when enemies rose again and again. Humans rose faster. Tears ran down Lyra's face, not from pain, but from understanding. We thought you were monsters, she whispered. Dane finally stood weak, swaying but standing. No, he said. We were made into them. Lyra blinked. By war? No, he said. By being left alone in it. The Krasari soldiers all around began to lower their weapons completely. Some knelt. Others cried, because for the first time in their long history, they had seen something bigger than fear. Endurance, not just to survive war, but to carry it so that others wouldn't have to. That was the weight in him. Dane's blood, not pride, not anger, responsibility, that the human ship sent one final message. This was only one voice. Earth has millions more. We carry the past, so no one forgets what silence costs. Voss, still bound after his attempt to kill Dane, struggled to look away, but even he, proud and stubborn, could no longer deny the truth. His war was over, and human. Memory had won it without a single bullet. Dane turned to Lyra. Now you know. She nodded slowly. I do. He reached forward, and she stepped closer, offering her hand. This time, not to take blood, but to give peace. Hours later, the human ship lifted silently, disappearing into the clouds as suddenly as it came. No destruction. No revenge. Just a message left behind. A story told through blood, through memory, and through a single wounded human who reminded an entire alien army of what war truly costs. Back on the Krasari capital, Lyra stood before the High Council. They asked what happened. She didn't speak for a moment. Then simply said, we tried to conquer a species that remembers every scar. We failed, because you can't destroy a people who've already survived the worst you can imagine.